Good morning, team. Tommy G, Middleaged Millennial, coming to you from a very different setting as I keep looking at myself. We are actually, I'm in the city of Brisbane, and I'm attending a seminar, and it's with a famous American economist, one you may know, called Harry S. Dent, and it's been quite fascinating to learn about his ideas of where we're headed from an economic forecast point of view. So we're waiting for Maddie to join, our resident PT expert, and he'll be joining us any tick of the clock. We're going to be talking today about the core issue. So if you remember, we had a session last week about core. So getting to the core economic issue, here's the big news. On 2020, where are we now? We're 2019. So by 2022-23, we are going to bottom out economically. So some big things could happen. There could be a bit of correction happening over this next couple of years. So look out for that. And we're going to have from 2023 to 2036, so 13 years of a big boom. Where to live in the world for the biggest upshot of that? Happy to say Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Israel, I think India, Southeast Asia are going to be the big emerging markets that help keep Australia afloat, because the immigrants that are coming from India, for example, are going to keep the Australian and the rest of the economies in this region buoyant. So there you go. As far as the US is concerned, it's sideways, and then all of Europe and bits of Eastern Europe are heading south. So there's the good news and the bad news, depending on where you are. And I think we've got Maddie waiting in the wings. No, we do have one viewer, and I don't even know who that is. So there you go. So whoever you are, reveal yourself. Comment. So how's that, hey? The next couple of years, real estate's not a great place to be. Apparently Australian real estate, for the Australian viewers here, is about 40% overinflated. I've heard that enough times, where it's almost going to become a self-fulfilling prophecy, I think. And when you hear that news, you think, maybe I should sell the home. Or are there ways to protect yourselves and insure yourself against the market on those sorts of things? Well, I guess we're going to hear that later on today. So as we wait for Maddie to join, the core of the issue, we started last week where everything was centrally, it's sort of like the core is the hub stabilizer for the whole body. Tended to be the message, and I've just seen a message come up from Maddie. He's about to join, and it's almost like the brain being the center of the nervous system. It's like the core is the center of the muscle system, if you will, and everything kind of hangs back on that core. So the core, as the name suggests, tends to be at the center of stability. So with knowing that, and we just have let me just give you a quick look here while we're waiting for Maddie to join as well. A bit of Brisbane in the background. We've got some nice churches in certain parts of Australia. There's one right there as I look out on the street, and of course the good old Aussie flag with the good old Union Jack. With any luck, that'll disappear one day, and that red bit won't be there when we become a republic. They've tried a couple of times to have a constitutional change on that, but anyway, with a referendum. So Let me just see if Matty is on there. He is. We're going to bring him on in the house. Oh, you'll also notice that I'm dressed a little differently. I'm not wearing the good old workout gear for once. Okay, so Matty, come on in. There he is. Man, look. Did you notice?
Yeah, you're all. You got the whole three. You got a button down collar, man. You got the business look on today.
Man, right. I'm at a business-like seminar, man. Harry S. Dent. Do you know who he is, right?
I know exactly who he is.
Yeah. So I've been just listening to him talk here in Brisbane.
We could talk about good stuff after. I want to know exactly what he has to say compared to what I know.
Oh.
So we could talk about that.
Yeah, we can. 2023 is the year.
Oh, it is.
2023, yeah, when it's like in the next couple of years, things could go at a rapid pace. But then from 2023 to 2036, it's like this. And guess what? Best places to be, Matty? Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Israel, and one or two other countries are the ones that are going to make the most of that 13-year spurt.
Did he talk about the Silken Road?
No, he didn't. Not yet.
All right. We'll talk about it.
Oh, cool.
So
right. I look forward to that.
Let's talk about the core.
Let's get to the core of the issue about the core. Episode 2.
Yeah. So you're obviously talking low for many reasons.
Yes.
When you talk about the core, I sort of heard what you're discussing. It's really a vitally important aspect of movement. Yeah. And you talked about the stability aspect. And anytime you want to be a more powerful human being, and I don't mean just athletically speaking. Right. I'm talking about activities of daily living, walking across the street, getting in and out of a car, off the toilet. It sounds crazy, but as we get older, these are important. And if you have a core issue, be it a rib issue, a spine issue, a lower back, a pelvic issue, you will not be able to move well with your arms and legs because the core is where all the stability happens to propel your body across the ground or up off the ground. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, and if you've ever had a back injury, you know what it's like to not be able to do much. Yep. So in any case, last week we went over some basic stuff regarding the core. What I'm going to do is bring this down, and hopefully we can sort of see this.
Sweet.
So we talked about the core. We did a lot of stuff where I was laying on my back, and we did some. The thing about the core stability is this: when you have limb motion, when your limbs move, arms and legs, you want to use them to create instability in the core, where the core has to react and stabilize.
Right.
Meaning, when you move your arms and legs, the core has to fire to keep the pelvis level. But if the core is not strong and stable, or stable and strong, it won't be able to keep the pelvis level in a good neutral position to use the power of the arms and legs. So, for example, if I go like this, if I do this, if I move my legs like this, but my pelvis is doing this, I don't know if you can see that, but if I'm arching, and that means I have instability in the core, so it could lead to back problems. So when I see people doing...
That instability looked almost erotic there, Matty.
Hey, listen. There's core stability for certain things, and then there's core mobility for certain things. So yes, core is important for that too.
Yeah, cool. Okay.
So here's the thing.
Right.
So I'm going to demonstrate some core stuff on my side.
Okay.
So for the muscles here, okay?
Uh-huh.
So it's core stability we're going to do on our sides, and then we're going to do a couple other exercises that are more up on a machine.
Cool.
Okay? So we did the plank. Remember the plank?
Oh, yeah.
Right, we did the plank last week? Okay.
Some great in-room
so this week, So this week, we'll just do a quick thing on the side plank, and hopefully everybody can see this.
Yeah, because
This is
this one's interesting. Maybe we'll screw this up a bit.
This is a side plank, and I know we went over this, but I wanted to add a few things.
Yeah.
This is a modified version. My legs aren't straight out; they're bent, and I would lift up here. That is a modified version, and you could hold this position. Now, in holding this position, you could do many things. You could have a weight in your arm, and you could do this.
Okay.
Right? You could hold a weight here, like if you held a dumbbell here and made it a lot heavier to work your side more, because I'm working this bottom side most.
Yep.
All right? Because that's what's holding me up. So when you lift your hips up to do any side plank exercise, you have to press this elbow into the ground.
That's right.
And you tighten this rib muscle up and tighten it right here.
So that one's contracting. That one's contracting, yeah?
Right? This is contracting to prevent me from collapsing.
Right.
So I want to be in a nice tall position. Now, I could add leg motion. I could add arm motion. So if I go like this and I raise my leg up, that makes it harder.
Wow.
It also works.
The other one, yeah? The other one's now contracting.
Mostly, when I do this, it makes this contract harder, but it also makes my gluteus medius and minimus contract on both sides. This muscle here, and then this muscle here fires to hold my legs in the position.
Wow.
So it's a double whammy.
Wow.
Right? Now, how do you make that harder? You do this, and then you could straighten the leg out like
More
that.
Leverage. Right.
The lever arm is longer.
Right.
You could do this. You could have both legs straight.
Yep.
You could lift your hips up, and you could do this. And then you could, with your legs, you could bring your leg up towards your chest. That makes it even harder. So depending on where your level is in core training, you can make things harder without using any weights. You can make things more difficult by moving limbs, but maintaining stability of the core. So when I'm doing this and I'm moving my leg, my spine and hips are staying steady. And my spine and my hips are part of the core. By keeping this strong and then moving, I could do this. That makes it even tougher, right? So by moving your limbs, it makes the hips and the core work harder, especially if you're more advanced.
Right.
So people who've been doing this exercise for X amount of time, add in some limb motion.
Right.
Next, you could also do lowering. So if I do this, I could lower my hips down and lower them up, and lower them down and lower them up. That challenges the core too, but that's more strength oriented, because what I'm doing is I'm not holding this position, I'm lowering it down in an eccentric or negative fashion, and then I'm raising it up in a concentric or positive. That's the difference.
Right.
So when I go down, it's eccentric because I'm decelerating, and then I come up and I'm contracting, and that's concentric or positive. Okay?
Right, got it.
So that's...
So you're using the levers and extending them to give extra effort, basically.
Well, it's making it more challenging, extra effort.
Yeah. Okay.
Always remember, the farther away the lever is from the fulcrum or the base support, like your core, the harder it's going to be.
Great. So that's why people can extend the effort. It's like getting increased weights. Instead, what you're doing is extending levers to get that extra weight in effect.
Exactly. Perfect.
Sweet. Got it.
How much time do you have?
I'm good, brother. You keep going.
Okay.
I'm just going to make myself a coffee here, I think.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So if we were to do a plank, I'm going to add a couple things you could do in a plank, a regular plank.
Right.
So if we were to do a plank this way, right, where we keep our core tight and butt tight, what you could do with this is you could straighten your arm out. So right now I'm going to hold my right arm, which is the arm that's in the camera, and I'm going to straighten my left arm out. And I'm going to straighten my right arm out, right?
Yep.
This challenges the core stability, but the key is when I do this, I don't want to rotate my hips.
I like this
I
one.
want to keep my hips steady. So when I straighten my arm out, the less I move my hips, the better.
Right.
Straighten my arm out, the less I move my hips, the better. But if I shift, no good. Right? So now let me move up. If I go like this, right? Core tight. If I lift my leg, Notice there's no motion in my pelvis or my spine.
Nowhere
But if I do
else.
this
Yep.
and my hips go up and say my back's arched,
Yeah.
that's no good.
Not cool.
Bad for your lower back. So you have to be able to hold your pelvis and your core tight and maintain stability at your pelvis and your deep abdominal wall while you move a limb. So notice I'm moving a limb.
Yep.
I'm using my glutes on my right side,
Yep.
but my pelvis and my core is tight and staying the same. It's not changing.
Got it. So
That's core stability.
Perfect. So how many of those
You could
on each leg?
you could do it for 8 to 10 reps. The key is quality of motion. If I can lower and raise my leg an inch or two without moving my pelvis, you're just adding a lot more work to that core, and obviously involving your hips, right? Your hip extensors. So when I do this, I'm extending my right hip. When I do this, I'm flexing my right hip.
Right.
That's another one. Mm-hmm. So if I do, like some of my clients, what we do is we do a plank exercise. And what we do is we call it, it's a three-way plank. So I'll get in a plank position, and then I'll bring my knee on both sides, alternating to the outside of the same elbow, to the same side elbow, and then across.
Right.
So it looks like this. So I'm here, I go outside my elbow, I go to the elbow, and then across. Right. And then I switch, outside the elbow, to the elbow, and then across. Whoa. But I try not to sway the hips. Right. So again, when you get good at planks, challenge yourself to start moving your limbs. So what I just did, that three-way is a lot more difficult, one, for your core, because you're going into a lot of hip flexion by bending your knee. But also you're going outside the elbow, you're going in line with it, and then across. And that actually causes some rotational components where you're trying to stabilize your pelvis while you do it. So it's just another added way to make things more challenging. So that's just things you could do with the plank. Obviously, let me do one thing here real quick.
Sure.
I'll be right back.
No worries, man. So, once again, guys.
So here we go.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Okay.
I ran.
You did.
The benefits of being young.
I love these
So
bands,
I take this band.
It's like so portable.
Right now, how do I make this tougher? If I want to make my core work harder, let's say if I want to do push-up position. I take this band, I wrap it around my pelvis, right here in my lower back, like that. Now, then I put my hands down. Now look at my lower back. See how my lower back's arched?
Arched, yeah. Not cool.
No good.
Yeah.
No good. So what do I want to do? I want to tighten my pelvis by squeezing my butt and then turning on the core. Now I'm in the new. This is no good. Right. That's no good. Get to neutral right there.
Right. Get that axle straight through your bum through to the top of your head.
Right. So now here's the key. Okay. The band is pulling my stomach down towards the floor.
Right.
But what I do, and what people can do to make this harder, is to pull the belly button up to the ceiling and then squeeze your glutes. Now watch. I go right leg straight, left leg straight. Now I'm in a push-up position where the band is pulling me to the ground, and I don't want it to, so I give it resistance to prevent it from doing it. So it's called an anti-extension exercise. So I go like this. Now it's pulling me into extension. Yep. No good. So I contract my core, and now what do I have? I have anti-extension, right? Right. So the core is firing to stabilize my pelvis, right? It's making it harder. You follow? So that's one. That's an added core exercise you could do while you're training your core. All right? You could put a plate, a weighted plate on there if you wanted. Somebody can lightly push down your pelvis, and you do the same thing. But here's the band. Now, you could add to that. Tuck your pelvis, lock it in, be tall, and then you can move your legs. Without the core collapsing, can you move your legs and keep your hips steady? Wow. That's another benefit. Okay?
That is hardcore core.
Well, it is because you're challenging it to prevent it from being pulled down. Right. And in a lot of sports or activities in life, where let's say you're in a car accident, God forbid.
Yep.
If you get hit from behind and you go into that position,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
A bike, a car, or whatever. That extension, that quick extension, if your core is strong, and also your neck from training, it could prevent that quick hyperextension,
Damage.
and it stabilizes that. Yes.
Right. Yeah.
So of course we all want a good-looking six-pack, but if you can prevent injuries from being worse by doing this, you're going to get a benefit from it, not only on a physiological basis, an aesthetic basis, but also a prevention of injury basis.
Right.
Okay? So those are a couple others. Now, let's go. Can you see that wondrous machine right there?
Oh, that looks like it's something they used to
That's
use
the
in the
same
dark
machine
ages.
we saw. Yeah. So let's see if we could
Let's check this baby out. What do
see
they
that
call
right
this?
there.
What do they call this?
This is a functional trainer. It does a lot of, it's a single arm, double arm, pressing, pushing, pulling, rotational, exercise machine. It does everything.
Who makes the best?
You got so many out there. You got Precor makes it. You got Free Motion makes it. I mean,
Okay.
the bottom line is you're going to pay probably $1,500 to $6,000, depending on the brand, depending on the stability of the metal, depending on how it's put together.
Okay.
So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to move this a little bit closer.
Is this one of your favorite machines? Like if someone was going to buy
I love this.
like a
Heck yeah.
home gym, would this be the first thing you'd say that they should buy?
If somebody had the money to do this, hell yeah, this would be the perfect piece.
Wow. That's
Now,
really cool. Okay.
it's awesome. Can you see me?
Yep.
Cool. So this is a
What do they call
this
it?
first exercise called a Palloff or Palloff
Palloff.
press.
One of the ones you've given
Right.
me.
And
Yep.
yeah. So what you want to do, this is an anti-rotational exercise. So stability is not just prevention of this and this,
Yep.
it's also prevention of that and that, right?
Right.
So core stability comes in many forms. So let's say, for example, I want to work on my anti-rotational component.
Right.
So when I take this weight, I grab it with the lead hand, and then I wrap it with the trail hand,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
I get in a good stance, not like this, straight up and dangly. Get low, bend your knees, start at the chest, okay?
Cut the chest.
Now what
Yeah.
I'm doing is I'm going to push my hands out in front of me.
Right.
So when I go like this, like that, and I hold it,
Yeah.
what's happening is the weight that's there is pulling me to my right. It's right here. It's pulling me this way.
Right.
So I have to prevent that from
here,
happening.
From here,
So-
it looks like you're left. It's okay. Just let you know.
Right. That's fine.
Yep.
So I have to dig my feet into the ground,
Yep.
bend my knees, and here's a really, really good tip. If you do the Palloff press, squeeze your inner thighs. The squeeze doesn't mean do this.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean go in. It just means tighten your inner thighs.
Nice. Where are your feet
When-
pointing, man? Where are your feet pointing at? Like a 45-degree angle or straight out or what?
My feet are pointing straight ahead.
Straight ahead. Okay. They're parallel.
Straight ahead, and my feet are outside my shoulders, so I have a good wide base.
Right.
Now, once I'm in this position, I'm tightening my inner thighs and I'm pushing my feet into the ground. What I do is I put my hands out in front of me and I hold it. Now, the farther my hands go away from me,
Where's the tension right now?
right here.
Both sides?
It's right here and right here because it's pulling me this way and I don't want it to.
Right. Okay.
So I'm preventing rotation. So I hold it out,
Yeah.
and then I could do it for 2 seconds, 5 seconds, depending on your level. Then I would bring it back, bring it out. The farther it goes, the harder it is. Bring it back in.
And obviously
Hold
it's more tension when you lever out. So if you're extending the arm, that's a lever that's giving more tension to twist you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Out. Now, you could also do circles. You could do any motion you want. So, for example, if I'm holding this position, I want to draw a circle. I'll do 5 clockwise and 5 counterclockwise.
Got it.
So by doing this motion, from my eyes to my belly button, eyes to belly button.
Eyes to belly button.
This is challenging all my stability muscles of my spine and my pelvis, the anti-rotational. So I'm circling, and then I go the other way.
Both ways. How many of these we should do?
Again, start with 5 each direction, switch sides.
Got it.
Now, if you can go fast, you can go slow, you can go big circles, you could do little circles, right? You could also just do up and down. So if I'm here, I go from belly button to above, belly button to above. Again, you're challenging all the anti-rotational muscles of the spine and pelvis, right? So that's a powerlift press.
Yeah.
It's plus it's fun,
Yeah.
right? So what we're doing is.
I like doing that one.
So did you do the one with the circles or just the whole?
No, that's new. That's the straight out boring one, but the circle looks pretty cool.
Yeah. So now you can add circles.
Okay.
So there you go. So the powerlift press is, and you could do it. You could do it kneeling on one leg. You could do it kneeling on 2 legs. So now the legs aren't involved as much, which means you got to use the core even more. Right?
Yeah.
All right. So next, let's do this. I don't want to trip. Let's go here. Let's do a. It's called a rollout.
Okay, let's roll it out. Let's roll out the rollout.
And it's not the rollout that you think, right? So let's see how we could do this. I'm setting up.
Okay.
So give us a little breakdown of your outfit there. You got what do you got? You got a.
What am I wearing?
You got a. Let's see. You got a Hugo Boss there. What do you got?
This is a. Thanks for asking. I didn't know we were going to be doing a quick fashion commercial, but
Well,
I'm wearing a Massimo Dutti Spanish brand, which I love. It's really well
nice.
priced. It's really well priced. And,
Awesome.
And I've got the Massimo pants too. The Massimo pants going and see
Massimo.
Massimo Dutti from Spain. They're really well priced, great quality, trendy. And I've got some.
No Ferragamos, huh?
No Ferragamos. That's all. That's all. Usual brand crap.
That's too much for you.
It's too much for me, man. So, and notice the shoes, the boots. Right? Now, there's a story for these boots. These boots, these are the suede ones, and they weren't cheap. I bought them in Florence, but I bought them off a guy called Ben Hart. Ben Hart is not his real name, so his surname's not really Hart, and he's from eastern part of Europe, in Florence. And he used to work for the likes of a Ferragamo or what's the other guy? Givenchy, the other Italian guy. Anyway, this guy had a heart attack on the soccer field. He died.
Whoa.
He died. They brought him back, right? They defibrillated him, got him back. His heart expanded too much. I forgot the name of the disease.
Wow.
And they had to take his heart out and give him a heart transplant. So they had to put a zipper in, put the heart in. And that's when he decided, that's it, he's not working for those corporations anymore. He's going to follow his heart and start up his own gig. And
wow.
So Ben Hart, and this guy's going to have stores around the world. Now, the story behind these boots, though, when I heard that, I just went and bought a beautiful linen jacket and so on. But anywhere in the world you can be, if you've got a problem with the clothing, you contact them, they'll send a courier to pick up that garment, whoever it is, wherever you are, take it back, do the repairs, and then send it back to wherever you are for the lifetime, for the lifetime of the garment.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Anyway, so Ben Hart. So
great filler.
I didn't have to be live with him. Somebody searches back about it. It was fascinating.
We would call that a great filler in the drumming business. As a drummer, if you have a great fill. All right, so this is called a rollout. This is a rollout, okay?
Yeah, let's do this.
Now, what you want to do with a rollout, and there's numerous ways you could do this. The problem is I'm trying to get the best angle here, and notice my knees are on a pad. You don't have to be, but I'm going to move this back so you can kind of see this motion. And I'll move over a little bit.
We'll
so we can see this. But what I love about the rollout, the rollout is what this does is it puts you into a potential spinal extension position and a pelvic extension position, but you have to resist it. So it's kind of like sort of an advanced plank. So what I do is imagine this. If you could. So what happens is I tuck my pelvis like this. I tighten my core, squeeze your glutes, and then I roll my hands and hips forward at the same time. I go as far as my core will allow me without my back arching, and then I come back. So I'll do a slow, right? I go out as far as I can, and I come back. Right? Now, the key to this exercise is to keep your core tight by tucking your pelvis, pull your abs up and in, and squeeze your glutes. As you roll forward, you do not want to release those areas. And then what you do is you come back. Now, a couple of tips. When you're rolling out, you keep your core tight and your butt tight, right? But when you come back, try to bring your hands and knees towards each other, as opposed to just bringing your hands back. So even though my knees don't move, when I try to drive my knees towards my hands and my hands towards my knees, it helps. It's a great way to create some stability and tightening of the core.
Right.
So I go away.
I mean, you're not moving your knees, right? But your psychology is around the fact that you're doing
Right. So I'm going to drive my knees down and forward. So when I bring my knees down and forward towards my hands and my hands towards my knees, it creates more force and I get back, as opposed to just using my hands. Now, a lot of people, when they do a rollout, is their hands get too far ahead of their hips and they'll go like this. And their hips are behind now, and then they do this, and then they collapse.
Oh, yeah.
No good.
Right. Okay.
See my back arch?
Yeah.
Not a good position. So you got to stay in that tuck. We roll out, and we roll back. Okay? So that's a great exercise for anti-extension or a stability of your core and your pelvis. All right? That is the rollout. And you could do, those little ones with the wheels.
The wheel.
You get those.
Yeah. One of my ex-wives.
Yeah. And then, or you could use a bar. Doesn't matter.
Right, so bar,
Either one.
What size weight or diameter is that?
Oh, this is about a 25-pound bar with 10-pound plates on each side.
So about 4 kilos with
Right.
With a what? With a 25-pound.
So this is 4.5 kilos on each side and a 25-pound bar.
Got it. Okay.
So those are rollouts.
Nice. Yeah, that one's a tough one, but you got to be careful not to arch the back on that one. That's an easy one to arch the back on. If you're not
Well, listen.
engaging your core.
On all exercises where you're going to go into some type of potential hyperextension of the spine, hyperextension, you got to keep your core locked in.
Every time you
Part of it too is, yes, it's really, really important because you are controlling your spine, your lumbar and lumbopelvic hip complex. And if you can't control it, that's not good. All right, so always do the exercise slow in the beginning, little at a time. Increase your distance away, and then come back. All right.
How many of those? Again, it's like 10, or how many should you knock out?
Listen, I'll be honest with you. Not that I haven't been, but a lot of people have a difficult time with that exercise because it can make you very sore.
Right.
Make you very sore. So it's a tough one. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm setting up a great exercise that I love to do. So bear with me. I'm just going to make sure we can see it.
Hey, I'm in the US this weekend, right?
Oh, that's right. You did say that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Which part?
West Coast, San Francisco, Seattle is the focus.
Nice. Okay, cool. So this is called a reverse crunch.
All right.
Okay? Now, when you do exercises that let's say I'm laying on my back and I'm doing this. I'm lowering and raising my legs like scissor kicks, right?
Yep.
The pelvis stays still while I move my legs. Your pelvis shouldn't do this. It shouldn't rock back and forth. Your pelvis should stay still while you move your legs. On this exercise, you want to keep your legs still and move your pelvis.
Okay.
We've all heard of the crunch.
Yep.
We've all heard of the crunch. This is a reverse crunch. In a regular crunch, when you crunch forward, you bring your ribs towards your pelvis. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Ribs to pelvis. In this one, you're going to go pelvis to ribs. Okay?
Okay.
Pelvis to ribs. So when I do this, you want to keep your knees and hips bent, at least in the beginning, at about 90 degrees. So I'm on my back, 90 degrees, 90 degrees. Now, I hold on to the back or side of the bench,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Now, I take my pelvis and I tilt it up towards my ribs and back down. So just like this, hips up and down, hips up and down. So there's,
No arching.
well, it's not even just arching, it's just pelvic motion. So I'm focused on the muscles here to bring my hips up. So your obliques, your external obliques, and these muscles, pull your pelvis up like that. So they go like this, right?
Yeah, I need that.
So the key to this exercise is the stability of the rib cage while my pelvis moves. The stability of my rib cage while my pelvis moves. On a crunch, it's the stability of my pelvis while my ribs move. It's the opposite.
Got it. Okay.
Got it?
Got it.
So now you can make this difficult in so many ways. So you can have a longer leg position,
More levers. Okay, there we go.
right?
Yep. So it needs more work.
You can lift it up,
Oh yeah. Then straight. Got it.
right?
Yep.
So depending on how strong your core is and how far your legs are away from your core depends on the difficulty.
Yep.
Okay?
Got it.
I like to do a combination sometimes of alternating leg lowering and then a reverse crunch. So it's kind of like this. So I'm here, and I go like this, and I keep the pelvis still. So I'll do like 6 of these, and then I'll do 6 of these. And then I'll go 6 of these,
Yeah.
and then 6 of these. So that combination is very tough on the core too.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does, man. And I reckon that's.
So-
Go on.
No, go ahead.
Probably going to need to land it in the next few.
Cool. We can land. Yeah, I mean, we're good.
We're good. All right.
Yeah.
With episode 1 and episode 2, we've got a shitload of core stuff you can do, and I mean a stack of it was without any apparatus. Some of it is if you happen to be in the gym, so it's just not in the hotel room. But if you happen to have a gym, there's a few more things you can do, like with the roller one and the pull-off press as well. And you know,
If you
and the band is.
if you have
travel with that one, you can travel with that baby.
listen, you could have a band, and if you have a band and you have a post, if you have a bedpost,
Yep.
you go like this, right?
Yep.
And you create your own.
Oh, look, you got a
Right.
press. Right there.
No, it's yeah. Yeah, you could do any. You could do rotation. You could do circle. You could do anything you want.
On the door or something. Rip a door handle.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
I mean, I love the band. The band
Light-
is like lightweight, easy to pack, and there's so many things you can do with that damn thing, you know? So it's like, the band's cool.
The band, to me, is such a fun tool because you could do whole body, you could do lower, upper, you could do 2 leg, 1 leg. It's just awesome. Rotate.
Next week, why don't we just do like a whole band? Let's get the band together next week and just do stuff. Something to do with the band.
Let's do the band. Let's bring in the whole band together.
Let's bring in the band.
You be the singer.
Okay, yeah, I'll sing.
You be the singer.
Right, well, you hit the drums on the band.
I used to be the drums.
Okay.
We'll bring the band. The band will be the strings.
Is Different
So,
bands. You can bring in a few different bands. Let's have a band off
yeah,
next week.
you give bands this thick and this thick.
There we go.
So, and there's tons of things to. And listen, I'll let you go.
All right.
You could also do power core exercises, and there's core exercises that are involved where there's power, explosiveness.
Right.
Typically, they're like med ball slams and rotational throws, but core power exercises usually come as a result of having some core stability and some core strength.
Yeah.
So we did stability last week, some stability this week. I just showed you some core strength. There's other core strength we could get to, but I know you got to run. So I'm glad we got at least 40 minutes in, or whatever it is.
We did. So it's a nice compact session on some really good stuff. And, I think people just need to be aware when they're getting up, sitting down, doing any of those movements that pivot around the pelvis, to start get a habit of thinking about core and engaging that core before perhaps you make those moves each time as well, right?
Well, yeah, and you know what? When your core is strong, all your other lifts will be better.
It's the hub, right? It's the
all your other lifts will be better. I notice for me that when my core is feeling really, really good, my deadlift gets better, my squat gets better, my pressing, it all works together because that's where everything kind of has to go through. It's that spot, that where everything has to work from there. And if there's any weaknesses, it's going to show up in some exercise.
The core. The core of the core.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Matty, love your work, love your passionate delivery and energy as usual, man. And so does everybody else on the other side that gets to watch this during and after, doing it live.
Yes.
And if anybody wants to know any more about this stuff, you got to.
Hey, if you want a core workout, give me a call. Text me, message me, PM me, DM me, IM, whatever you want to end me.
Matty
give me an Emmy.
Matty is hardcore.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, buddy. And if any,
hey, tell Harry I said hello.
I say Mr. Den. Hey, Matty. Hey, Matty Antonasio. This guy swears like a
tell me,
man. He swears every second word like an F-bomb. So, yeah.
Well, listen, as long as he's getting his point across, right?
He is. Everybody's getting it. I love the word fuck. I mean, it's like it's just used in the right context, it drives the point home. So
and that's all that matters.
That's all that matters.
Keeps the audience awake.
It does.
All right, guys. Have a great night. Thanks a lot, Tommy.
Next week, Matty. Thanks, brother.
See you, everybody.
Remember,
Ciao.
enjoy life when, Matty? Right here,
right now. Right here, right now.
Today.
Ciao.
Okay, bye, guys.